now is that it is a clown. It still is like a clown car of candidates, like 22, 24, depending on which
How many
which
did
day
the
it
Republicans have when they were fighting?
17, I believe.
So it's up there.
And it can have the same impact. And I will say that, look, I understand Democrats are looking for who's going to be the strongest. I'm looking for what crazy crap Marianne Williamson's going to say. I'm looking forward to seeing what crazy radical stuff. If you're going to raise your hand and say that all illegal immigrants should have health care when they come into this country, right now it's who can be the most far left on this stage, which is great for a primary. It's great when you're trying to win over Democrats. But when you get to a general, it's also who's going to be able to hedge and win over all the Trump voters who voted for Trump after they voted for President Obama.
So that was Meghan McCain basically making the argument that, oh, no, you're too far left. Democrats, you need to run to the right to try to get Trump voters. Now, where do I begin? I mean, there's so much there that is absolutely ridiculous. I guess we'll start with this question. Does anybody ever tell Republicans that during a general election, they need to run to meet Democrats? Does anybody ever tell Republicans that? Oh, no, you understand. You've got to pull it back because you need to appeal to the Democrats. No, they never, ever say that. I mean, I've never heard that before. Now, oddly enough, we do see some examples. So let me give you some of that. For example, every time Republicans run, they talk about saving Social Security and saving Medicare. Oh, no, we believe in Social Security. We believe in Medicare. All this stuff. Don't worry, seniors. We're going to take care of you. Now, in reality, of course, they do everything they can to undermine those programs so they can later on cut them. Or even better yet, force Democrats to cut them in order to continue to make them fiscally stable, right? Now, Donald Trump himself, if you can remember, he even praised universal single-payer health care when he said Australia had a better health care system than we do. Australia has a single-payer system, literally called Medicare. You know why they do that, by the way? It's because it turns out progressive policy is incredibly popular with Americans. Now, if you divorce any of these policies from the party itself, right? Because when you do polling and you say, you know, X politician is for this policy, well, then support for that policy drops among the other members of the other party, right? But when you say, hey, this is the policy, do you agree with this policy? Generally, like, for example, on healthcare, generally, even Republicans are like, oh, yeah, we like single payer. Yeah, sure. That sounds like a good system. So, okay. Now, let me go back to the example for Medicare for All, right? So, Medicare for All, when it first came out, or people started talking about it back in 2016, it had over 70% support from the American public. Now, that was before it was brought down by relentless partisan attacks by both Fox News and MSNBC. Again, you have people out on MSNBC right there talking about how terrible Medicare for All is. Lean forward. Yeah, no, they're leaning forward into a pool of cash from health insurance executives and corporations. That's what they're doing. But no, even after all those attacks, you still have 56% of Americans that are in favor of a government-sponsored health insurance plan. And again, if you divorce that from partisan, identity, whatever, instead of saying Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez supports a, Medicare for all single-payer system, and you just say this is what it is, it's a government-sponsored health care plan that offers this, and this, and this, and this, generally more Americans are in favor of that because they actually like good policy. So now she wants to talk about radical, right? Forget the Marianne Williamson thing, right? But she says, no, they're going to talk about radical things. No, you know what's radical? Cutting Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid to the tune of trillions of dollars, as the Republican budget had proposed. You know what's radical? Cutting food assistance for millions of Americans in need. That's radical. What's radical? Giving tax cuts, trillions of dollars in tax cuts to the rich and giant multinational corporations while wages remain stagnant. You know what else is radical? Not doing anything about climate change. Even Republicans, even Frank Luntz Republican spinster, the guy who came up with death tax and all this, basically phraseology that the Republicans use to push back against progressive policy proposals. Even this guy's like, we do actually need to do something about climate change. And you know what happened? His house burned down in a wildfire. Hey, man, look, if it's a Republican, if it happens to a Republican, if it happens to me, then we got to do something about it. If it happens to you, I don't really care. But, hey, at least he's on the, I guess, sort of right side on this one, for at least acknowledging that climate change is a real problem and saying that we actually got to do something about it. But even with all that, still, you got people on cable news saying, oh, no, we've got to run to the right. You can't win as a leftist despite having incredibly popular ideas because leftism is just not mainstream in this country. No, this is a double standard, and it's also false, by the way. That drives me absolutely insane. Democrats should not be running to the right. They shouldn't be running to embrace the right wing. No, they should not only be representing their base, of course, but also the vast majority of Americans who actually agree with progressive policy. Now, that leads me to the statements by Sunny Hostin, who is also a View co-host. Here's what she said about McCain's comments.
I actually think if you look at the estimates by the U.S. Elections Project, 43% of eligible voters didn't even bother filling out a ballot in 2016. So that means 100 million people who have the legal right to vote just decided it wasn't worth it. Yeah. That 100 million people, those 100 million people need to show up. So we need a candidate that are going to energize those people to walk out of their doors and walk into the ballot box and vote. Well, that's what we need. Who cares about the Trump voters? If you still support this president after his racism, after putting kids in cages, after everything he's done, you're not going to change. True. You're foregone. I don't care about you. But I care about the 100 million people.
I'm pretty sure a few Trump supporters' heads just exploded. Oh my God, how dare you say that you shouldn't care about me? How dare you not care about me and my my economic anxiety? Now, again, studies have shown that the common driver among many Trump voters, now I'm not saying all of them, but many Trump voters, wasn't economic anxiety. It was racial anxiety. It was racial resentment. A lot of these people are doing fine economically, but they're afraid of darky moving in next to them in their neighborhood or seeing signs in Spanish. Nothing freaks out one of those hardcore Trump supporters than seeing a sign in Spanish. If you're American, you speak American. I don't care about those people. And so I agree with Sunny Hostin. She's right that we shouldn't. Democrats should not care about those people. Now, if you're talking about, of course, some of the small minority of people who were brick throwers, and I've talked about them before, who actually did have economic concerns, or at least had concerns that, the establishment was screwing them over. And again, there are a few of them, right? And they were worried about bad trade deals. Things like Hillary Clinton supported TPP until she didn't support TPP. Wealth and income inequality. Now, those people have long abandoned Trump because he has shown himself to be another member of the 1% who doesn't care about anyone but himself. Those are the voters you can reach, and you don't reach them by going to the right wing. You reach them by doing good economic progressive policy, like the ones espoused by the Squad and by Senator Bernie Sanders. He is one person that can reach those people who are struggling, who don't have the baggage of racism and xenophobia that most, if not all, current Trump supporters now embrace. The solution isn't to go right, it's to go left, where the rest of the people are. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, You know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.